If Mara puts on a disguise and she's like, hey, I'm going to put on a disguise, but I'm going to be downstairs at the party. Okay. Every time I see her walking around with that fake mustache and monocle, I will know that's Mara in the fake mustache and monocle. No one would else. It's such a good mask that no one else, a costume that no one else will know. So those whose eyes are already focused on looking for God, they start to see God in everything. They start to see like God is behind that. God is behind spring. God is behind autumn. God is behind winter. You know, God is behind the sunrise. God is behind the sunset. God is behind the celestial bodies. God is behind the change of seasons. God is behind the birth of a baby. God is behind death. And they're starting to change their lens.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Gothenburg, Sweden. This is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily spiritual podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. It's Monday, April 7th, 2025. This is episode 1573. We're winding up the Yoga Games Festival in Gothenburg, and we're heading into, I'm switching hats here and turning into Merch Monday. You can see your merch. And we're switching hats and going hardcore because the band, Shelter Band, is showing up. We're doing a book signing today in Gothenburg and then a Shelter show. Check it out. It's our new merch, everybody. If you're interested in our new merch hats, and we got beanies too. These are cool. This is going to be a gift for Road Rage. But if you're interested in some new merch, it's there on our website. Go to wisdomofthesages.com for beanies and trucker hats and dad hats. If you know, you know. Kaustubha, good morning.
Good morning, Raghunath.
How are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm good.
Wow, it's dark there. It's 6 a.m.
You see out the back. Yeah. Big Ram festival yesterday with Rajnath Swami.
Big Ram. You know, I didn't get... in New York. I missed it, but I tried to do it on my own. I tried to have a little special Ram moment.
You know, he did what he does. You know, it was funny.
What does he do? What does he do? Are you analyzing what he does?
Yes.
Tell me.
He talks about Ram for a long time. There you go with that glass again, Raghunath.
Yeah.
Cocktail.
It looks like it. Little Swedish vodka.
But, you know, Maharaj, he was supposed to speak from 5:15 to 6:45.
Enough of that. He'll just go right through that.
So
blast right through
that's
that.
an hour and a half, right?
Yeah.
And as he showed up, I was sitting next to Sri Prahlad. I said, you know, I invited Maharaj to speak on Ram Navami once at the Broome Street Temple, like years ago, 15 years ago or something like that. And like that was just like a yoga, or people that, you know, are just like new to the whole Ramayana and everything. And he spoke for over 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
And then so Maharaj came and sat down and he spoke.
Well, wait a second. Go back to the Broome Street Temple, because when you're dealing with devotees are like, okay, we're going to buckle down. I know I'm hungry, but I'm just going to stay. Some have to leave. But what was it like for a bunch of yogis who don't even,
you know, honestly, I don't know.
Much?
I remember being concerned at the time. Like, I don't know if they're ready for this, you know, like, but you know, certainly they benefited.
Because I had Maharaj speak at Kula Yoga once, and I was like, please, Maharaj, I think these people have short attention spans. Let's keep it within these parameters. You really have to try to wrestle him in, but sometimes he'll just gets inspired and it keeps going.
Well, particularly with Ramayana.
Yeah.
And
he's so good at it.
He went for 4.5 hours last night. He just kept going and going. But it was, I tell you, the way that he tells it, Raghunath, you could see there's probably, I don't know, like 50, 100 kind of like segments to the story as he tells it. And he would just choose the segments that he would expand on. You know, like he said, you know, and then, you know, like Sita told the story to Hanuman. And then he wouldn't tell that story right then, but you knew like that's 45 minutes right there that he could have done.
Right.
You know? He said, I've done it, you know, he said once for me to really tell this, I need about 50 hours, you know.
Wow. You know what the interesting thing is? It's like a super hard drive in his head. He doesn't have to refresh a
It's
story. He
there.
doesn't have to go back. He's got hard drives of Ramayana, Mahabharata, Bhagavad
You
Gita,
know,
Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya
yeah,
Leela. Then he's got all the lives of the Vaishnav saints all stored in that
he's got it
hard. It's
all in there.
unbelievable.
I
I've
think
got like crazy songs from the 70s, phone numbers, commercials from the 60s and 70s.
I think that beyond previous lives, you know, I think all those years he spent in New Vrindavan living up on that hill, I think he
Yeah.
was just like absorbing it all, you
Yeah,
know.
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll do it.
All right.
All right.
We need to mention something about Al Burrill. Should we do that now? Or should we do that
Yeah.
after announcements?
Let's just do it right now.
Right.
A big part of my band when I when I started my first band, Youth of Today, was influenced by this very charismatic man from Boston, a few years older. He's like 4 years older than me. And they sort of preceded my first band, Youth of Today. And Youth of Today went on to become, sort of internationally acclaimed and toured internationally. But we were inspired by this one band from Boston. And the guitar player and sort of the force behind the band was this guy named Al Burrill. And he was sort of like a gruff, strong, sort of athletic Boston guy. And he sort of made it okay to be into sort of alternative punk music, but not be into drugs and living on the streets and wearing dirty clothes. He sort of gave the thumbs up for clean living. And me and Paramananda, we rallied behind this guy, and we derived a lot of inspiration from him. And we sort of like never were buddies with him, and probably till the last few years, we started coming in actual like contact with him through the internet. But we always sort of knew each other. But his band never like took off in those days. It broke up before the whole punk scene, the hardcore punk scene, got that big. So anyway, they were just such a seminal band. And yesterday he left his body. And we just want to give a great shout out and appreciation for him, because I feel like I wouldn't be the man I am today if not for him. I will say, strangely, about maybe 3 years ago, I started getting clandestine messages from him on Facebook. And they were weird messages, like something I remember myself saying. And I'd be like, how does he know I said that? And I was like, and then he'd send me another one. And I'd write him back, like, how do you know I said that? Hey, good to hear from you. How do you know I said that? And I realized he was listening to the podcast. And he was listening to the podcast. And he'd be the last guy, because he'd be the last guy to listen to a spiritual podcast. He's one of these people you don't think is a spiritual person. But for some reason, he was, I don't even know why to this day he was listening to the podcast. But I think he just said, oh, I like you and your buddy Kaustubha. And so he was listening to it for a while. So, yeah, we had just some very sweet exchanges. And then his health took a hard turn. And
for a long time, he was struggling with cancer and different
chronic pain too.
Chronic pain.
And so anyway, we just want to give out a lot of love and a lot of appreciation. And he was listening to the show for a long time. And I just want to give some love to his wife. They've been married something like 43 years, Nancy. And a lot of love, a lot of appreciation. I got a feeling a lot of people listening to this have also been inspired. I got a lot of messages from people on our podcast, like Jamie Step Dojo, Paramananda. I mean, a lot of the hardcore people. It's the same thing. A lot of us got into punk, but realized punk is negative. It's dark. It's dismal. It can be like real polluted. And he sort of held the torch for another alternative. And so there's a lot of appreciation going out to him.
I remember seeing his band was called SSD, or SSD Control. And I remember seeing them like in 1981, 1982, 1983.
Jealous.
And they would and they would come to New York, and there's always this thing about like, on one hand, everyone was like really into this band, and on the other hand, it was like, okay, they're from Boston, we're from New York. It was like there's this tension in the
It was
air. It
like
was,
Boston Red Sox and the
yeah,
Yankees.
it was, and he was like the one guy, like in New York was like such like a crazy, insane street scene. But like looking at him, he was like the one guy from that scene. Everyone was like, okay, he's for real. Like, like you don't want to mess with that guy. He was like kind of, like his exterior was like a Boston tough guy.
He was like a Terminator, a Boston Terminator.
Yeah, but he, um, there was something about him that was very sincere, and something about him that like just was, he had a certain type of integrity about him that was very real. And you
Yeah.
could feel that. Even back then, you could kind of feel that, like when we were just
sure.
kids.
For sure.
And it was just very interesting when he got into the podcast. So in one sense, it was like, oh, that's the last guy I think would get into it, But and he got, maybe he got into it just because he was just into the dialogue, and into the back and forth. But he wrote to me a few times too, and he was interested in the theology of it all too. He it wasn't like he was into God or worshiping God or anything like that, but he was into thinking about life and its meaning and its purpose and dharma
Right.
and that kind of thing. Like there was something about him that he took an interest in, like a sincere interest in.
Mm.
And so, although I never met him in person, just had a few back and forths, in yourself as well. And of course, your band was like very much came in the wake of his band and expanded upon what he he was doing. It was kind of, there was a certain sweetness in him taking an interest in the podcast that was nice in the back
There's a
and
sweetness
forth.
in him.
It was probably a year or 2 years that we were going back and forth a bit, and then his health really took a downturn, and I think at that point we started to hear from him less.
Sure.
His wife is well known in the hardcore scene, is writing books on this. She was like produced hardcore shows back in the very early days.
Yeah.
She was there and everything that was happening in the earliest days of hardcore. And
Mm.
she seems very sweet too, Nancy Burrill. So in any case, in our tradition, whatever he accepted from what we were offering and from what Bhagavatam was presenting, it just feels nice that we were able to have that contact with him. And it's our faith. I wrote a little message to him because he was posting stuff on Instagram that it was kind of making it clear that he probably didn't have, he maybe only had a day or so to live.
Mm.
And, I just wrote a little something saying, I know Krishna Bhakti is not your thing, but it's my thing. And so, we're thinking about you. And
I'm glad you wrote that.
yeah. It's our faith that just even a little contact with this type of energy, with this type of sound, especially the Srimad Bhagavatam, that it has a very powerful and lasting effect. And so, we trust that Al's journey, continues under some special grace. And we, in our hearts, we pray for him and wish him the best,
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So, Miss Mara, quick announcements before we dive into the Srimad Bhagavatam.
No show tomorrow. Kaustubha and a co-host will be back on Wednesday at 7 a.m. Eastern time.
Okay.
And then also today is Wear Your Merch Monday. So help us promote the show by wearing your Wisdom of the Sages merch. Take a picture, share it on Facebook or Instagram, and tag us.
There you go.
And we'll share your post too. And everyone's been asking us for it. And we've got brand new hats, trucker hats, beanies, dad hats on our website. So go to wisdomofthesages.com and click on merch to check it out.
Yeah. Also wanted to make that announcement. Me and Lori Pag are doing a retreat at Super Soul Farm. All the retreats that are going on at the farm this year are available on my website. Go to raghunath.yoga/SSF. Super Soul Farm, SSF. And of course, the Wisdom of the Sages one, which is happening on Memorial Day weekend. All right. What's our nugget, sir?
You got the nugget?
Here we go. Yes. This is by C.S. Lewis, one of my favorite nugget. He's Nugget Nath.
Do you think he would have liked you?
C.S. Lewis would have loved me
Okay.
because
Sure?
I embody the Christianity that he embodies, yet I embody the broad-mindedness of Christianity that he embodies.
Are you sure that he would have been convinced that you embody it?
Yeah, I do. I
Okay.
do. There are some people when you say, "What do you think he would think of you?" I'd be like, "He would hate me," but I think C.S. Lewis and me would be like this. Here's what he says. He says, "We may ignore, but we cannot. We can nowhere evade."
Start over, Raghunath. Start over.
We may
I think
ignore,
C.S. Lewis
but
would have been upset with you already. Okay.
He would have been like, "Why didn't you study this?" We may ignore, but we can nowhere evade the presence of God.
All right.
The world is crowded with him. He walks everywhere incognito, right?
Mm.
If Mara puts on a disguise and she's like, "Hey, I'm going to put on a disguise, but I'm going to be downstairs at the party," okay? Every time I see her walking around with that fake mustache and monocle, I will know that's Mara in the fake mustache and monocle. No one would else. It's such a good mask that no one else, a costume that no one else will know. So those whose eyes are already focused on looking for God, they start to see God in everything. They start to see like God is behind that. God is behind spring. God is behind autumn. God is behind winter. God is behind the sunrise. God is behind the sunset. God is behind the celestial bodies. God is behind the change of seasons. God is behind the birth of a baby. God is behind death. And they're starting to change their lens. So, yeah, eventually there's so much magic happening in this world that even those for example, everyone is actually in disguise. And then if someone comes into that party, we're like, wait a second, that person looks like they're in disguise. That person looks like they're in disguise. So God is incognito. And so in the same sense, like eventually you start to see there's got to be some divine hand in here, or you have to write the entire thing off as just some crazy existential dream. What do you think?
You just throw that out there, and then you just drop the mic and go back to the chat board. What do you think? I'm out of here. Take a slug of your cocktail. No, I'm with you, Raghunath. I think there's a type of approach to religion or God or spiritual, that's focused on like God's transcendence. Like above us, there's God. Like beyond us, there is God, and someday we want to try to reach that. But then there's another way to think about God or the absolute truth, as being present. And not only present, like, present in my heart or like a witness to my thoughts or my feelings or my prayers. That's important. All that's important. But beyond that, there's a term in Sanskrit, and it's a term that it comes up. It's there in the Upanishads, and it comes up in Bhagavatam, and we'll see it in a verse that we read today. But otam-protam. You're familiar with that, Raghunath? Otam-protam. It's a podcast, so you have to say rather than just nod. You have to.
Truthfully, no, I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, so otam.
Explain it.
Well, otam means the warp, and protam means the weft. Like when you're weaving cloth. Like we've never done this kind of stuff, right? But you got like all the strings going the vertical way, and then you take a string across, the horizontal way, and then you push that thing, and so there's the warp and the weft. If you have a cloth, when you look at cloth from like a distance, it just looks like one solid piece.
Right.
But when you come up close, you see, oh no, it's all woven together, by these thin threads, that are made tight, that holds it together in one piece. Otherwise, it all just separates and falls apart. And the way that Bhagavatam speaks of this world, or the Upanishads speak, that it mentions that this supreme absolute truth, or Krishna, is the otam and the protam. He's both. There's nothing here that's not his energy. Krishna said, he uses the word protam in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says, Mayi sarvamidam protam sutre manigana iva. That everything is strung upon me like pearls are strung upon a thread. That you might not see the thread, but when you see a row of pearls in a necklace, you know that there's something present
Mm.
that's holding it all together.
Mm-hmm.
And so Krishna saying, I am that Protam Sutra. I am that string that everything's thread upon, that's holding it all together. And that awareness is part of what it means, is a large part of what it means to be Krishna conscious, to be God conscious. As you're saying, that there's nothing that I'm seeing that's disconnected, and that I'm moving around in the energy of God. You know, it's not that the sacred is somewhere else, but the sacred is what's holding together. Every moment of existence is being held together by God, by, as the energy of God. It's the invisible thread that's holding like this whole tapestry of existence together, and I'm in it at every moment. That's something that we can cultivate by hearing Bhagavatam, hearing the insights of these, we say prayers, but, we could say hearing the insights of all these great thinkers, all these incredibly deeply spiritual beings, that they had this understanding. As they're moving through this world, they're not feeling disconnected because they're seeing it all as God. Maybe it's one of God's energies, right? Like his inferior energy, the material energy in one sense, but in one sense, it's all God's energy. And in that sense, it's all spiritual. It can be seen that way.
I like you.
All right.
I like you, sir. All right. Want to dive into the Srimad Bhagavatam? We're at sort of an interesting interesting little place here. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam madirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva bhadreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki, by regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotees. All that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated. And loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmadatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 9, Text 7.
Okay, what's
The
happening?
woven cloth. We have the descent of the Ganga is brought to this earth, about to happen. Ganga is fearful that she's going to destroy our planet.
Okay.
Bagiarth says, hey, don't worry. We've put certain things in place. We've got Lord Shiva. You're going to land on Lord Shiva's head. I'm going to worship Lord Shiva. Lands on Lord Shiva's head. Lightens the load.
Yeah, he still has to. You see, Bhagirath, this king, was, as we were mentioning previously, he was on a multi-generational mercy mission. Right? He was trying to do something for his forefathers, who were lying there in a pile of ashes, and he was concerned about their ultimate well-being. And so
we call that a purgatory, right? Would you call that a sort of purgatory? Like something happens, someone dies untimely, and they're sort of like in a purgatory.
I mean, I don't. There's no detail about exactly what they were experiencing.
Like, are they just not having a good life on another planet?
I don't know.
Or are they in some place in between?
Is it
Christians have this thing of
time
purgatory,
suspended for them in some way?
Yeah, Christians call this thing like purgatory, not between. Maybe someone can look up what purgatory is and put it on the board. But from what I understand, it's a place between heaven and hell. But they make benefit from those who are connected to them karmically, like a descendant, like us, connected to our father, grandfather, great-grandfather, by doing something on their behalf for their evolution.
What we have here is it's a place or state of suffering inhabited by the souls of sinners who are expiating their sins, burning off their bad karma, in a sense, before going to heaven.
Okay.
So we're not given any information about exactly what his forefathers are experiencing, but it was auspicious and inauspicious, death, because one, they were attacking the Supreme Lord in the form of Kapila Dev.
Yeah.
In another sense, they were in the presence of Kapila Dev, so that's good, right? So
That's a good
still
thing.
hard
Yeah,
to
yeah.
say, but there was a concern that there was an inauspiciousness in their lives or in their death, and he was like, I want to try to do something for them, and he was told, or not he was told, but his grandfather Ansuman was told that the only thing you can really do for them is Ganga water, but Ganga wasn't flowing on the earth. And so it became, generation after generation of descendants were trying to bring the Ganga down. And Bhagirathi was the one that, through his practices, through his austerities, he connected with Ganga. And she said, I'm willing to come, but there's a couple problems. One was, I'm going to take on everyone's bad karma. It's like everyone's just going to dump it on me. I don't know if I can handle that. And we read about that in the last 2 shows ago, right?
There's many beautiful paintings of this too. Ravi Varma does a great painting of the
Ravi
descent
Varma,
of
yeah.
the Ganga, but old Indian paintings of the king calling the Ganga to descend.
Yeah.
Is,
And so
maybe you could use that as a thumbnail or something today.
oh, okay. I'll try to find that. But
Or Al Burrill jumping with his guitar, one or the other.
okay. But so we spoke about the answer to that question was, don't worry, because saintly people will be bathing in your waters, and they're going to be nullifying whatever bad karma is in there. And so we got this picture of ultimately the presence of Krishna as the supreme purifier, whether he's in the water of the Ganga, whether he's being carried in the hearts of people bathing in the water, that we all, if we carry God in our heart, in our memory, in our thoughts, in our, through our actions, that we all become like this purifying force. And so she was appeased by that answer. And then the second concern was, I come down with a lot of force. I don't know if the earth can handle it. Bhagirathi said, we can get Lord Shiva to receive you, I guess, or like to catch you in a sense, and to bear your force. And so now that's the topic now as we enter. What was the text that we entered today?
9.
Text 9, you sure?
7.
Yeah.
Because we're doing the cloth, woven cloth.
Why don't you read
What?
6? Oh, no, there's
Sure.
7. You're right, 7.
7. Like a cloth woven of threads, extending for its length and breadth, this entire universe, in all its latitude and longitude, is situated under different potencies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
That's the otam-protam right there, brother.
Lord Shiva is the incarnation of the Lord, and thus he represents the supersoul in the embodied soul. Interesting. He can sustain your forceful waves on his head.
All right. Why don't you read the commentary to this one?
Yeah. His commentary is 7. The water of the Ganga is supposed to rest on the head of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is an incarnation of the personality of Godhead who sustains the entire universe by different potencies. Lord Shiva is described in the Brahma Samhita. Here's what they say. Here, I'll just do the translation. Milk changes into yogurt when mixed with yogurt culture. But actually, yogurt is constitutionally nothing but milk. Similarly, Govinda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, assumes the form of Lord Shiva for the special purpose of material transactions. I offer my obeisance at Lord Govinda's lotus feet. Lord Shiva, end quote. Lord Shiva is the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the same sense that yogurt is also milk, although at the same time, it is not milk. For the maintenance of the material world, there are 3 incarnations, Brahma, Vishnu, and Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is Vishnu in an incarnation for the mode of ignorance. That material world exists predominantly in the mode of ignorance. Therefore, Lord Shiva is compared here to the longitude and the latitude of the entire universe, which resembles a cloth woven of threads, extending for both its length and breadth.
No.
It's such a great analogy because they say it's very difficult to understand Shiva Tattva and understand who Lord Shiva is, But what a great analogy the Brahma Samhita gives. Milk is yogurt. Nothing else is it. It's just milk, but something switches in it. And now it's a completely different food. It's one's a liquid and one's sort of like mushy. One cools the body and one heats the body, right? They have different effects in the health of a person. Anyway.
Yeah, and just with a slight touch of a bacteria, milk transforms into yogurt, and a slight touch of the material energy, Vishnu transforms into Shiva. And so here he's saying like the entire universe is made out of him. It's like the what is it? The waft and the whatever they call it, the two different the weft and the waft, or the warp and the weft. So in other words, you don't have to worry about you're going to destroy the earth. It's like you're going to land on the head of the person that's one of the energies that this universe is made out of. So there's nothing to worry about. He can handle it.
It's interesting to think like these people who study physics and they're trying to figure out through calculations how the multidimensional universe works and quantum mechanics. And it's here, but we actually see beings behind it all. Not just a multidimensional universe, but beings of the multidimensional universe. A river descending and landing on the head, and that river itself is a being landing on the head, yet it somehow ties in with this multidimensional universe. And they've been speaking about it, trying to explain it with faces and forms.
I just saw something yesterday, I think it was. Let me see if I can pull it up. That scientists are beginning to believe that there's at least some are beginning to believe.
There's a what?
Some scientists are beginning to question, is it possible that the sun is conscious? Here we go. Universe Space Tech. I'm reading. So there's a theory that consciousness is limited not only to living beings, but also to inanimate ones. All physical objects of the universe, planets, stars, galaxies, have a mind and feel the world around them. This concept, known as panpsychism, is not new. It has been around for thousands of years. Yep. And a new publication in Popular Mechanics raises the question of this philosophical trend that consciousness is present in everything that exists. Although the original versions of this idea were expressed in ancient Greece, I'm sorry, you can go back further.
Go back farther, please. We want to give all the credit to the Greeks and the Romans, don't we?
Okay.
So, like,
well, they're white.
They're white.
So in any case, there's ideas that if you look at how the sun responds to different things, it seems like, it has consciousness. It has conscious responses. This is the idea always that behind the river, behind the mountain, behind the sun, behind the moon, there is a conscious being.
It's amazing that if you even mention this in 1968, Prabhupada was saying this stuff and people were like, what? Now it's like becoming in the conversation in the same way vegetarianism,
multiverse,
part of the conversation, even yoga. In the 80s, you were a weirdo. You were part of fringe society if you were into yoga. Now there's like a yoga block. And interestingly enough,
yes,
in the same way, we advanced from those silly Greek people who used to think that planets were beings. Now we understand what a planet is. They were caught up in their myths. And now we're going full circle.
Maybe the planets are beings.
We do this all the time in the name of evolved thinking. We extract personalism, and then you have a mechanistic dead world. And you see this happening in yoga. It just becomes you extract spirit, God, Ishvara from the actual teachings of yoga, and we've isolated it into like a physical routine, and we try to study it scientifically with our very limited instruments. And we say, yeah, if you move your body like this, it's good for you. It's good for your breath. It's important to breathe. We've studied breathing now, and we're definitely giving it a thumbs up. It is a very important thing to do, and we've got to work on. We have a breath work workshop going on. No one calls it a pranayama workshop. It's a breath. We're studying all different types of breath work. They'll do everything. They'll take over the party, and they'll kick out the guy who's throwing the party. Krishna's putting on this party. He's introducing us to all these theories and ideas, and we're kicking him out of the party. It's Krishna's house. Imagine going to Kaustubha's house. I invite all my friends over to Kaustubha's house, but I lock Kaustubha out of the apartment. I'm using all of his resources. We're saying, hey, Raghunath, where'd you get all this food? It was just here in the fridge. I just, it's great, isn't it? Oh, can I lay down on your bed? Sure, lay down on my bed. We're claiming it to be ours.
Right.
Everything is it's a land grab. It's a resource grab. And we want all the credit. Well, maybe somebody owns this apartment. Nah, no one owns this thing.
It's all of the philosophy is there. All these answers are there. And it's spelled out so clear that even a child, this is one thing that I always like to talk about. It's like, we're talking about Al Burrill, but, I always think my friends from the old hardcore scene who didn't even go to high school, that they had all the answers to the universe just by reading Prabhupada's books. Yeah. And they could actually explain them. And here you have a scientist that's writing, just listen to this. He says, there's a theory that consciousness is limited not only to living beings, but also to inanimate ones. Duh. If it's conscious, it's not inanimate. Inanimate literally means that it's conscious, So if you want to say apparently inanimate ones, you don't even, as you're writing about this, you don't even have a clear idea about what consciousness means.
Right.
Otherwise you wouldn't have said such a, otherwise you wouldn't have said such a self-contradictory statement. Just that was the first, line of your essay here.
And you have to know what you're looking for too. So the Vedas give you, here's the treasure, and here are the clues to get to the treasure. Whereas we don't have a map, and we don't even know what we're looking for. We're just like, no, that something's wrong here, and there's probably something more, but I don't even know what direction to move into. All I can do is feel around with my hands and my eye, but my senses. But even with our own senses, they're limited. Just for example, without that map, we're just walking around in the dark. We need we need some clue. And we need to even know what we're looking for. What is that thread? And when we do find those threads, does that thread have any other form? That fabric, say, does that fabric have another form? Or is that it? We're just looking for fabric? What do we do with that fabric? Are we supposed to have a connection with that fabric? And what's the purpose of this treasure map in the first place? This is the treasure map, and this is the treasure.
And why not
Srimad Bhagavatam?
And why not at least, even if your faith isn't there, at least like show these texts the respect that they deserve and start to dig into them? Because all the things, we're just discovering that this may be, they were talking about it so long ago. Why not, those brilliant scientists who reshaped, the face of science in the previous century, they were into this stuff. They respected it. Why didn't you catch on to that trend, that Einstein was into and Oppenheimer was into and all these other, great scientists are into? This is another article from a website called The Bite. And it's consciousness does not need to be confined to brains. People knew this a long time ago, but it starts this way. A bong rip of a theory suggests that all matter possesses some form of mind or consciousness, not just animals, including, as one biologist suggests, the sun itself. It's in a fascinating dive into the hypothesis, which adherents call panpsychism. Popular Mechanics reports that this out-there concept has existed for thousands of years, and in its more crystallized form has been bubbling around for the last few hundred years. And then they begin to speak about what this person discovered and what that person discovered, et cetera, et cetera. Why not give these texts, the respect that they deserve? Because they have this goes back to what we were talking about the other day. What do we call it? This kind of selective reasoning.
Yeah.
You know, those texts say too much stuff that I just cannot endorse, like God's a person or there's many gods or whatever. You know,
Right.
I can't deal with that personal face. You know, so I'm not really ready to embrace these. Not even exactly embrace, but kind of like engage seriously with these texts. Well, then you're just going to be playing catch up forever. You know, and just be kind of wandering when there's a manual to the universe that was given. Why not at least experiment with it? You know, engage with it seriously.
Engage with the manual. Take away. Okay. Back to the goodies. After saying this, Bagiarth satisfied Lord Shiva by performing austerities, right? Because he's got to get Shiva to opt in now
You got to get him
on board. O King, Lord Shiva was very quickly satisfied with Bagiarth.
Now
Well,
that's
this seems
yeah.
pretty easy.
Well, not easy. I mean, you don't know how intense those austerities were.
Yeah, a good point. Good point.
But you know, the question is why is he pleased by him doing austerities? You know, like why are the devas pleased? We hear about this all the time. You know, like what is it what was he doing that was austere? Was he fasting and sitting in one place for a very long time? You know, what exactly was he doing? But I think, you know, it's that there's something in performing austerity that's like a sign of your sincerity and your determination to kind of like align with the Dharma, with the cosmic order, you know?
Mhm.
And when someone's willing to undergo like these kind of difficulties for a higher purpose, it draws the attention of these divine beings who are themselves like the agents of the cosmic order.
Mm.
You understand? It's like saying, I I'm understanding the system that you run, and I want to show you how determined I am to illustrate that. And there's something, and within that self-discipline, one gets the clarity. You become purified by it, you know, somehow, and you get this kind of clarity. And now you're kind of on the same page with the devas. Like,
Mm.
okay, you understand what we've been saying all along, that life isn't meant to just to be chasing after these immaterial things. You want to penetrate deeper into the matrix and understand really what it's all about. You've shown me that by your austerity, and now I'm coming right down to your level and ready to communicate with you. Something like that. I think it must be right.
I went off into a little mental squirrel because I reminded
Okay,
myself
okay, great.
something you said reminded me. I had this incredible dream last night, an incredibly Krishna conscious dream. I don't know if I should share it with you, but anyway, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful. Every night I've been praying, please Prabhupada, please Lord Chaitanya, please Krishna, please Cowherd Boys, please Radha, enter in my dreams and instruct me. Every night I pray that as I'm going to bed. Isn't that a good dream? Isn't that a good prayer?
Sure.
It is, and it hasn't happened. And yet last night I didn't really get an instruction, but it was very transcendental. I'll tell you privately.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it came over me, and I was flooded with a joy. Okay,
Text
where are
9.
we at? Text 9. Play with that prayer, people. When King Bhagirath approached Lord Shiva and requested him to sustain the forceful waves of the Ganga, Lord Shiva accepted the proposal by saying, "Let it be so." Then, with great attention, he sustained the Ganga on his head, for the water of the Ganga is purifying, having emanated from the toes of Lord Vishnu. Mara, how did the water emanate from the toes of Lord Vishnu? What does that mean?
Because Trivikram poked a hole in the what would you call it? Sheath of the universe.
The
Yeah,
outer shell.
Lord Vishnu, in the form of Trivikram or Vamana, punctured it with his toe and he expanded when he took those 3 steps. Good one. So it's considered Charnamrita because it bathed the feet of Lord Vishnu. Okay. Text 10. The great and saintly king Bagiarth brought the Ganga, which can deliver all fallen souls, to that place on earth where the bodies of his forefathers lay burned to ashes. Bhagirath mounted a swift chariot and drove before Mother Ganga, who followed him, purifying many countries until they reached the ashes of Bhagirath's forefathers, the sons of Sagara, who were thus sprinkled with water of the Ganga.
He did it.
Because of the sons of Sagara Maharaj had offended a great personality, the heat of their bodies had increased, and they were burnt to ashes. But simply by being sprinkled with the water of the Ganga, all of them became eligible to go to the higher planets. What then is to be said of those who use the water of Mother Ganga to worship her?
Oh, you want to read the commentary to this?
Sure. Mother Ganga is worshipped by the water of the Ganga. What? A devotee takes a little water from the Ganga and offers it back to the Ganga. Right? And you'll see this happening at temples all over. There's always water being offered to the deity. And what is that? And even when you worship the Ganga, what are you actually offering? You're offering Ganga water. So we see people like this with sitting in the Ganga, having the Ganga run through their hands. And that is the offering of the Ganga to the Ganga.
Mm-hmm.
When the devotee takes the water, Mother Ganga does not lose anything. And when the water is offered back, Mother Ganga does not increase. But in this way, the worshiper of the Ganga is benefited.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, a devotee of the Lord offers the Lord patram, pushpam, palam, toyam, leaf, flower, fruit, water, in great devotion. But everything, including the leaf, flower, fruit, and water, already belongs to God, right? And therefore, there's nothing to renounce or accept. One must simply take advantage of bhakti process, because by following this process, one does not lose anything, but one gains the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the beauty of bhakti. We don't have to renounce the world. We just take the world and engage it in service of God. There's a flower. Look at that beautiful flower. That flower is Krishna's anyway. When we're offering flowers to Krishna, do you think Krishna needs our flower? It's his flower anyway. But it gives us the opportunity to make a meditation, to offer something with love. Krishna, please accept this flower. Krishna gets nothing. Krishna has not lost anything. But it gives us this opportunity to gain devotion, to see the connection, to draw the line, right? To connect the dots from this is something to this is the source of something. And I'm going to try to offer this and muster up some love in my heart and some appreciation, which previously wasn't there. Previously, these planets that are floating in this, they're just a bunch of planets. But now with a lens of devotion, I'm seeing, oh, these planets are beings. These planets are serving. The planet I'm on is also serving, right? I'm just sucking the resources of this planet. This planet is nurturing. I can nurture in return. And these planets are all the source of the Supreme. And all of a sudden, now devotion is imbued with your appreciation for nature. All of the beautiful things. I like to go. It's springtime. Me and Mary went for a walk in this beautiful park in Gothenburg. We're seeing oak trees. We're seeing magnolia trees. We're seeing everything in blossom. But now it's tied to, the springtime is coming from Krishna. Krishna's making this happen. We connect the dots between beauty of this earth and bringing it back to the source of beauty. Because you could even bring it to the source of the planets. The sun is getting warmer. The planet's getting warmer. The springtime, the warmth, the appreciation for all that is coming from Krishna. So yeah, we can tie all the nature together. And then we also tie in that it's coming from a supreme source, a supreme benevolent source.
Yeah, I mean, any piece of fruit that you hold in your hand, any leaf that you look at, hold in your hand and look at, that leaf is like this, more intricate than some fascinating computer chip or something like that, right? And that
leaves, look at a leaf, man. They're unbelievable.
Unbelievably.
Unfathomable. A leaf, a blade of grass.
How did this stuff just grow out of the ground, you know? And what to speak of a fruit, you know, which carries, you know, beautiful color, beautiful fragrance, beautiful flavor,
Why would you
nutrition.
kick? Why would you kick God out of that equation? Why would you kick God out of that magic? From the fact that a beautiful, mature oak tree can grow from an acorn, why kick God out away from that magic? Why not see it as what it is? Completely magical.
And it's almost like you're totally misdirected if you're just focused on like how can I enjoy the fruit rather than like how can I connect with the person that created the fruit, you know, like
Or how did this massive, beautiful fortress of a tree grow out of this? Let me figure out the quote science behind it. Well, there's no God. There's just some rain coming down. There's just some sunlight. There's some fertile soil. Yeah. What's the source of all of that? And what's the source of it mixing together? And what's the source of it growing into something attractive and beautiful? Even the cutting of a tree, when you take a slice of wood, just looking at the grains of woods, it's a work of art.
it certainly is, Raghunath. And so all of this ritual that's like being described here, why does someone stand in the midst of the Ganga, take some of the water, and with a prayer offer it back into the river? You know, there's a purpose behind all this to understand that person, that there is an intelligence, and where there's intelligence, there's a person, and there is a person that is the otam and the protam, that all of this is of that person's energy, and that person's consciousness pervades it all. And I'm just this tiny spark, you know, in one sense, just like ridiculously tiny and dependent, and in another sense, like eternal and lustrous and brilliant because of the energy that I'm made of. What can I do? Can I move through this world in such a way where I become more conscious of what and who I actually am? And what is my connection to the being that's behind all this? Like, that's a reasonable way to go about life, you know? And all of this is just kind of like saying there's a way to follow that path. There's a way to follow that thread, you know, to its origin.
Good stuff.
Why don't we read a few more verses? And Bhagirati's story is going to conclude, I think, with text 16 and 17. Or maybe text 15.
13. Simply by having water from the Ganga come in contact with the ashes of their burnt bodies, the sons of Sagara Maharaj were elevated to the heavenly planets. Therefore, what is to be said of a devotee who worships Mother Ganga faithfully with determined vow? One can only imagine the benefit that accrues to such a devotee. Ganga Maya ki jai. Because Mother Ganga emanates from the lotus toe of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Anantadev, she is able to liberate one from material bondage. Therefore, whatever is described herewith about her is not at all wonderful.
Like how these ashes, just by being sprinkled with this water.
Yeah, of course you can.
And
Great
finally,
sage is completely freed from material lusty desires, right? The lust means I want to enjoy this world as mine. The me generation. When was the me generation? 70s?
80s, right?
80s? Look that up, Mira. I thought it was now. Maybe it's always been the me generation. Great sages completely freed from material lusty desires devote their minds fully to the service of the Lord. Such persons are liberated. The 70s? Such persons are liberated from the material bondage without difficulty, and they become transcendently situated, acquiring the spiritual quality of the Lord. This is the glory of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For one, by the way, for one who is actually in like the mode of passion or ignorance, this is such an attractive verse. It's like, oh, I can get away from these feelings. I can become different than what I am. I can become, in control of my senses. There is hope for me. It's such a beautiful promise that I can see that people just be like, this is what I want.
It's a fact, it all comes back to that that original nugget,
Yeah.
we may ignore, but we can't, but nowhere can we evade the presence of God. Not just that in this faith shouldn't just be that God is transcendent, that he's up in the sky somewhere. No, 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 no. At every moment I'm in the presence of God. At every moment I move through God's energy, this entire thing. And I can just take a little bit of that energy in the form of my body, in the form of my words, in the form of my mind, in the form of my little piece of fruit that I have here, or this palm full of water. And really, I just have this freedom to try to ignore or just to try to reconnect. And if you reconnect, then the promise of this verse, speaks to you. You become free of material bondage without difficulty. You become transcendently situated. You acquire, you rediscover, the spiritual quality of the Lord that is your own quality. This is what life is meant for.
Okay, we're gonna have to wrap it up, my friend.
All right.
Because I got a whole crazy day today of rock and roll. Miss Mara, do you have any takeaways for us?
All right. Al Burrill held a torch for clean living alternatives. A little contact with Bhagavatam has a powerful and lasting effect.
Mm-hmm.
One whose eyes are searching for God can see God everywhere.
Boom.
Be aware there's something holding all the pearls together.
There's a thread.
The thread.
There's nothing I'm seeing that's disconnected from God.
There's nothing what?
I'm seeing that's disconnected from God. Krishna's putting on the party. Don't kick him out.
Don't kick Krishna out of the party. Come on, people. Come on, yoga studios. Invite Krishna. Give Krishna unlimited membership.
See it all for the divine magic it is.
Okay.
Don't try and enjoy the fruits. Try and connect with the creator of the fruit.
I believe in magic. Boo, 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 boo.
We can ignore God, but we can't evade his presence. And engage with the manual.
Engage with the manual.
Engage with the manual.
Engage with the manual. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Engage with Emmanuel. Who's Emmanuel?
Who's Emmanuel? I'm engaged to Emmanuel. Everybody, thanks for joining us. Remember, Wisdom of the Sages retreat on Memorial Day weekend. Me and Lori Pag doing the yoga retreats and kirtan, and that is July 18th. Go to my
Apparently
website, raghunath.yoga/SSF for Super Soul Farm for all the stuff happening in Super Soul this week.
Apparently it's Aaron Erskine's birthday.
Oh, really? I thought it was Timothy Tucker's. Timothy Tucker's tomorrow. Okay, birthday peeps. I got a good friend here, my first adopted son here. This is Alex from Sweden is here. Harry Ball. A lot of you know him from Italy. He's a Swedish guy. Came to India with me when he was 16 years old. Mother, pure devotee. And thanks everybody for joining us. Let me look who's here.
So we're back, not tomorrow, but Wednesday. Or I'm back in this.
Oh, look. Elizabeth. Who's that? Oh, is that? Who's with it? Oh, that's Eileen Shovelin. Hello, Eileen. Hey, Maduria. Henry's here twice. What? Takorji's here. Brother Nature's here. KCD is here. Jimmy James. Bhishma Dave from Alachua. Holding it down. Harry Bowl. Laura Wright, always smiling. And Naveen Arjuna and Catherine A. Harry Bowl. And Saraswati Harry Bowl. And Jiu-Jitsu. Harry Bowl. And Salty Annie, good morning. Mother Amanda and Connor, Harry Bowl. Krishnamai, Harry Bowl to you. And Miguel, how are you, Miguel? Hey, Martine. You guys, thanks. It's great. Sri Rupa, gee, thank you for all your service, Sri Rupa.
I saw Sri Rupa yesterday in Bhakti Center.
Did ya?
Yeah.
Gyana Gomya. Okay, everybody. I'm trying as much as I can to do these podcasts, so forgive me when I'm gone. So we'll have a good fill-in for me. That will probably most be like. That will probably be better behaved. Perhaps much deeper thinker. Thanks, everybody. Beautiful day for a beautiful day. Let the magic continue. Oh, look, I don't have a squirrel. I have a Swedish moose.
Ah. Are there a lot of moose in Sweden?
Yeah, are you kidding? This is Mooseland.
Alright.
Okay, everybody. Beautiful day for a beautiful day. Let the magic continue to flow in a maha haribo.